Welcome to the studio at That Nerd Show. I'm Marcus Blake, and this is your daily nerd news for Thursday, February 6th, 2020. Our top story of the day takes us to the world of film. A Hollywood icon has passed away. Kirk Douglas, the indomitable icon of Hollywood's golden age, dies at 103. The actor starred in such films as The Champion, The Bad and the Beautiful, Lust for Life, Gunfight at the OK Corral, and probably what he is best known for, Spartacus. These are just a few of the great films that he starred in. Douglas walked away from a helicopter crash in 1991 and suffered a severe stroke in 1996, but ever the battler, he refused to give in. With a passionate will to survive, he was the last man standing of all the great stars of another time. The last of the great stars from the Golden Age. He was nominated 3 times for Best Actor by the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science. For Champion, The Bad and the Beautiful, and Lust for Life. Douglas was a recipient of the honorary Oscar in 1996, arguably the top male star of the post-World War II era, next to John Wayne. He acted in more than 80 movies before retiring from film in 2004. Kirk retained his movie star charisma right to the very end of his wonderful life, and I am honored to have been a small part of it over the last 45 years, Steven Spielberg said in a statement. I will miss his handwritten notes, letters, and fatherly advice, and his wisdom and courage, even beyond such a breathtaking body of work, it's enough to inspire me for the rest of mine. He's the father of 2-time Oscar-winning actor, director, producer Michael Douglas. The Amsterdam, New York native first achieved stardom as the ruthless and cynical boxer in Champion. In Bad and the Beautiful, he played a hated, ambitious movie producer for director Vincent Minnelli. Then he was particularly memorable again for Minnelli as the tormented genius Vincent van Gogh in Lust for Life, for which he won the New York Film Critics Award for Best Actor. But like I said before, he is probably best known for the role as Spartacus, and he rebelled against the McCarthy-era establishment by producing and starring in this film, written by Dalton Trumbo, who had been blacklisted at the time by Hollywood and Congress. He was an actor hero, and of course the film, was Universal's biggest moneymaker and achievement that stood for a decade. Douglas's many honors include the highest award that can be given to a U.S. civilian, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. The broad-chested Douglas often bucked the Hollywood establishment with his opinions, and he had the courage to back them up. I've always been a maverick, he once said. When I was new in pictures, I defied my agents to make Champion rather than appear in an important MGM movie they had planned for me, The Great Sinner, which wound up starring Gregory Peck. Nobody had ever heard of the people connected to Champion, but I liked the Ring Lauder story, and that's the movie I wanted to do. Everybody thought I was crazy, of course, but I think I made the right decision, and he surely did. Never one to toe the line with synthetic movie star type parts, Douglas played classic heels in a number of films. In 1951, he showed a keen flair for portraying the strong-minded characters like the sleazy newspaper reporter in Billy Wilder's The Big Carnival, aka Ace in the Hole, and the sadistic cop in William Wyler's Detective Story. He played more sympathetic types of characters in Out of the Past in 1947, and of course Gunfighter at the OK Corral. He played Doc Holliday. Paths of Glory was one of his finest films, and of course The Last of Adrian Messenger. Douglas was very particular in his role selection. If I like a picture, I do it. I don't stop to wonder if it'll be successful or not, he said in a 1982 interview. I loved Lonely Are the Brave and Paths of Glory, but neither of them made a lot of money. But it doesn't matter. He was quoted as saying, I'm proud of them anyway. His independent nature led him in 1955 to form his own independent film company, Brenna Productions. In the post-World War II era, Douglas was the first actor to really take control of his career in this manner. Captaining his own ship, he soon launched a number of heady projects. Most auspiciously, he took a risk on the young took a risk on a young Stanley Kubrick with Paths of Glory and Spartacus. films that feature two of Douglas's finest performance. He hired Kubrick for the latter after firing Anthony Mann a week into production. And I'm referring to the movie Spartacus. Indeed, Douglas backed his artistic and political opinions with action. His public announcement that blacklisted writer Travolta would script Spartacus was a key moment in Hollywood's reacceptance of suspected communist figures. During a Tonight Show appearance in August of 1988 to promote his book, The Ragman's Son, Douglas told Johnny Carson that he often drew from personal experience when it came to his own work in film. He was quoted as saying, "What I found out when I wrote the book is I have a lot of anger in me." He said, "I'm angry about things that happened many, many years ago. I think that anger has been a lot of the fuel that has helped me in whatever I've done." It's a very true statement. One of the great things about Kirk Douglas was his friendship and working relationship with John Wayne, even though they often at times couldn't stand each other because they were because of their difference politically. Ever the rebellious liberal, Kirk Douglas always worked well in films with the ultra-conservative John Wayne. And even John Wayne has said many times in past interviews that they could be civilized. They could have dinner and talk about things and enjoy each other's company, but they didn't have to talk about politics and let that divide them. I always thought that was, for me personally, I've always thought that was a great lesson, especially in today's political world. If these two, icons who were very different people, very different politically, and very outspoken and boisterous about their, with their opinions, if they could get along and be civilized, then why can't other people? But it is a sad day that the Hollywood icon has finally passed away, and he will be forever remembered by multiple generations. I remember seeing him in a lot of great films that my father introduced to me, one of them in particular, In Harm's Way. So, to the Douglas family from that nerd show, our prayers and our condolences to you. Kirk Douglas will definitely be missed, but his legend will always live on in the great films that he made. In other news, we turn our attention to TV and streaming news. It was announced the other day that John Travolta will star with Kevin Hart in a Quibi series. Another announcement about the streaming service that will be launching in this spring. But anyway, the two-time Oscar nominee is the latest big name to sign on with the short-form streaming service. Travolta is set to star opposite Kevin Hart in this action comedy Die Hart. It was formerly called Action Scene at the short-form streaming service. And production on the series is scheduled to begin Sunday. Die Hart will have Hart playing a fictionalized version of himself, someone who's tired of being the comedic sidekick. A famous director offers him the shot to be the lead in an action movie, but there's a catch. Kevin first must train at the world's greatest action star school, which is run by a lunatic played by John Travolta. Pushed to his limits by the coach and the tough-minded rival student, Kevin must survive a series of over-the-top action sequences and face his fears if he wants to achieve his dream and land the role of a lifetime. Hart is an executive producer, also alongside Jeff Clanagan, president of the Laugh Out Loud production company. The two created the action sequence that opened Hart's 2016 concert, What Now?, alongside with director Tim Story, which served as the inspiration for the Quibi show. But anyway, John Travolta joins a roster of A-listers working with Quibi that includes Laura Dern, Kiefer Sutherland, Jennifer Lopez, Don Shield, Dwayne Johnson, Lena Waithe, Sophie Turner, and Idris Elba, among others. The service is scheduled to launch April 6th and will offer scripted and unscripted series in short chapters of 10 minutes or less, along with daily news, sports, and lifestyle programs. It's a light news day, so that's pretty much what's going on in the world of TV and streaming news, along with film. So we turn our attention to one piece of news in the world of gaming. There was an article that came out this past week about Nioh 2, the sequel to the acclaimed game a couple of years ago, Nioh. Basically about a journey of of going into Japan and being a samurai and that kind of thing. But anyway, Nioh's 2's most promising evolutions are thanks to fan feedback. It is one of the few games that has really paid attention to fan feedback to make the game that's about to be released. So here's a little bit about it. They aren't messing around when it comes to the sheer variety of the yokai demons. You're going to have to battle in two and bit hours that was spent in this demanding new odyssey through the Sengoku era Japan. Basically, you can take on the large brutish yokai with orange spikes sticking out of their shoulders, a floating head trapped in a wooden circle that spews fire at you. The last one is a monster that has a giant singular leg as well as one eye and a fantastic mane of hair. It also has real arse has been found when playing this game. When you mistime a swipe or leave your samurai open to getting his face smashed to the floor of the impeccably beautiful castle grounds. But anyway, this new cavalcade of monsters is one of the most obvious and immediate ways that Team Ninja has looked to address some of the criticisms of the original Nioh. General producer Yoshioku Hayashi explained through a translator that fan feedback led to the immediate improvement. One of the negative pieces of feedback that were received from Nioh was the lack of enemy types. They had enough enemies, but a lot of feedback said that once you learn the enemy's moves, it can get quite repetitive. He mentions that the team is aware of this and it played a big part in how it decided to approach the variety in Nioh 2, explaining this time we introduce a lot of the yokais to make them look more powerful visually as well as doing crazy moves and provided dynamic combat for a more challenging and intense game. If you played the original Nioh and are wondering how the foundations is set to get more challenging and intense, then Team Ninja has been listening to fans to help evolve their samurai Soulborn. In the area of the Dance of Death, like the original fights, Nioh 2, the dance between knowing when to be aggressive, managing your stamina bar, and juggling between 3 different stances with your weapon. If that sounds confusing on paper, it's a practice that works surprisingly well when you're in full flow. But anyway, you can get an early example of how this worked at the start of the demo. And as you make your way into the Kitano Sho Castle, the whole section has a welcome Moshi Omnimishima vibe to it, with the castle burning around you, bodies strewn across the floor, and hidden paths you can find your look hard enough. On the bridge outside, the first Yoki encounter roars into life and quickly becomes apparent. It becomes apparent that the game is getting more challenging when a red flash shows it's preparing to an unblocked attack. Team Ninja had been open about how part of this satisfaction has come from the feedback. The creative director Tom Lee wrote about how the team took the feedback from last year's open beta and detailed the changes they made based off of it. He said, "Needless to say, we are combining enough through every facet of the game, sharpening every detail to ensure that the final production is a battle tested for your enjoyment in the coming months." Those improvements included adjusting the balance of all your Yoki actions and strengthening several of the special moves and making them more manageable to use, according to Lee. And of course, Hayashi expanded on this, adding, we were aware to a certain extent some of the combat was quite unfair, so we made sure that the finished game will have more fair fights and people will feel right, when they die. Getting to the Samurai Shodown, the section that has been played in demos through mid-game had plenty of high-level weapons, but the balances combat did feel like it was the right side of demanding. If you died, it came from, being too cocky, swinging your weapon around without caring the world, rather than the game breaking down its own rules. That's not to say it's easy. You will die frequently, but it doesn't tip into punishing, give or take, the mine boss who has utterly pummeled will ultimately pummel the player mercilessly and repeatedly at the end of the demo. If that all sounds a little like Frost Software's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, then that's because comparisons are easy to make between the two. On the surface, at least, both have faster combat than most demanding action RPGs. They're set in the Sengoku period and involving slicing your way through terrifying, tough bosses. However, Nioh 2 has many different fundamentals that make it a very different experience. Another fascinating way fan feedback from the original Nioh has shaped the sequel is the introduction of a character creator, which will let you craft your own protagonist. In an interview, Hisashi was asked, and of course his answer is very forthright. Character creation, he said, was probably the most popular request we had from Nioh, and I thought that I would put players on the same page as the original protagonist William. The players can explore Japan with William, or with William and why we didn't get William's strong personality or even a voice, as he didn't really speak either. And in Nioh 2, it's the same approach, really, but so players can create their own characters and be themselves. While William's Irish brogue certainly stood out in the original, his new approach gives players a more immersive role in the story, considering the game's extensive customization when it comes to armor and weaponry. It makes sense to give players more control over their protagonist as well, although it's hard to tell what impact it has on the story when the demo that has been played was in the middle of the game. It's a small tweak and yet another example of how Team Ninja is refining the game based on what they heard. But make no mistake, Nioh 2 isn't making these changes for the sake of it. It's still a tough game designed for an audience who wants to overcome big odds and bigger bosses. While it's not entirely shocking for a sequel to improve on elements that were criticized in the first game, it's refreshing to see how open Team Ninja has been addressing the complaints from the fan community. When asked about this, Hayashi said, "It's crucial for the team to listen to players so they can make a game that they like." Again, it's no surprise, but it's clear that Nioh 2 is laser focused on delivering for players who enjoy this type of challenge, as well as snagging new fans to boot. We can't say that every developer out there in gaming does that. So again, it's very refreshing that they are listening to fan feedback. So it looks like a lot of the things that have been requested are going to be in this new game. It is one of the most anticipated games of 2020, but it also looks like it's going to be one of the more challenging games and even harder than its predecessor. So we will definitely check that out, let you know what we think. We did enjoy Nioh 2, and it was free on PlayStation a few months ago. You can get the original for about $15-20 now, and it's totally worth playing. Gorgeous graphics. So anyway, but we wanted to give you a little information about Team Ninja and how they are addressing fan concerns from the community. And it looks like it will be easy to reach out to them in regards to your feedback if you're a gamer. So if you've got complaints, requests, or all that, message them, email them, let them know what you want, because that's how we definitely improve games in the gaming industry. That is what's going on in the world of TV, film, and gaming today. As I said before, it's a light news day, but we did have some important information to tell you. Now we turn to our question of the day. In honor of Kirk Douglas passing away, I thought it'd be fun to ask the question, what is the best movie he ever made? And there's probably going to be a lot of debate about that. He's made tons of great movies. The ones that we mentioned before, like Paths of Glory and Champion and Spartacus and OK Corral and Lust for Life, I mean, they're all great. But he's also starred in other films that you may not have heard of, or smaller ones that completely surprised you. One of my favorites from Disney, which I'm surprised it's not on the streaming format right now, was a film called The Man from Snowy River. He actually went to Australia to shoot that film, shot it with Australian actors, and he basically played a Westerner cattle baron who set up shop in Australia and, you know, has it in for the mountain horseman who comes to work for him but falls in love with his daughter. But he also played dual characters. He played brothers. One brother who was rich, one who was always looking for gold. And in the dual roles, he was magnificent. Tom Burlinson, who starred in that, who played the young Jim Craig, has always said that it was one of his first films, but he's always said that Kirk Douglas was his acting mentor. But it's one of those surprise movies that you may not have ever known that Kirk Douglas did. But with all the great movies that he has done, and while he will probably forever be known as Spartacus, the original Spartacus film with Laurence Olivier and Tony Curtis, what do you think is his best film? What is the one that really reaches out to you, the one that you can watch over and over? Or is there more than one? As I mentioned before, one of my favorites, and it's a film that I've always enjoyed with my father, even though I'm not Navy, was In Harm's Way. It was the Navy movie he made with John Wayne, where he basically played John Wayne's executive officer. And it's a great testament to the Navy in World War II and how they fought the Battle of the Pacific. So we'd love to hear from you. Tell us what you think. Tell us your favorite Kirk Douglas movie. Tell us what the best movie, what you think is his best movie. Even if it's a popular one or one that we've never heard of. We'd be interested to hear it from you. You can tweet us out at That Nerd Show. But again, we'd like to take a moment to remember Kirk Douglas as a Hollywood icon from the Golden Age and all of the great films that he did. So talking about his film career is definitely worthy of discussion because there are many, many great films he did to choose from. So thank you for watching the Daily Nerd News today. I'm Marcus Blake with That Nerd Show. Until the next time, goodbye.